So let's get started with a few things and then people will join, and let me first address the SPICE group. This is the last facet seminar. So next week you all will be in the lab doing the projects. So even today you are doing it, I know. And keep safe, and the goal is not to get sick, and so that you can have a good last week. So today we have a special presentation, and the presentations will be done by your peers who are somewhat more senior than you, and the presentations will last about 2 hours. Is that right?
Hour and a half.
Yeah, they will last hour and a half, and Professor Ryan Kastner will be the manager for the show, and he will give a break. He will indicate, I think at the end of 1 hour or so, between two presentations, at the right time, he will indicate if you guys want to leave, you can leave. Okay, so don't leave in the middle, and these are formal presentations, and you need to be respectful. And there will be a natural break. Ryan will indicate, and then you can leave if you like. If not, then you are welcome to stay on until every single thing is done. And more importantly, many SPICE students go on to become engineers for exploration. Ryan will say more about that. And so you can talk about the program and the connection.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Kurt Shargas, who is another faculty who is not here this summer. So he also plays an integral role in this program and SPICE. Everyone is here from the SPICE. I can see some people are missing, and round them off. But without
We can start, yes. Thanks.
Without further delays, Ryan,
Thank you, Mohan. So welcome, SPICE people. There's a few people online too. Welcome people online. Yes, hello. So we so this is the Engineers for Exploration program. The Engineers for Exploration program has been going on for more than a decade. It started as a program funded by National Geographic, and started with myself and an explorer, and now like a pretty famous TV, not movie, but TV star called Albert Lin. So Albert's on a number of National Geographic specials. He was on the Will Smith special and other things as well. So you can go and look him up. But we started this program to involve undergrads in doing exploration and getting engineers involved in scientific endeavors. So the initial exploration was done through Albert's first kind of big foray into TV and exploration was looking for the tomb of Genghis Khan. And that was our first Engineers for Exploration project. And since that time, we've expanded it in a huge way. So we used to only have a few students, and now we have a large number of students here that we'll present to you today. Some 20-some students over the summer working full-time on these projects. But also during the school year, we have about 50 or more students, UCSD students. So hopefully like yourselves that will come and be able to participate in these projects. So all of the projects involve a scientific collaborator. People that are typically outside of UCSD or maybe at Scripps Institution of Oceanography. And they have a need for technology. And then we develop that technology for our collaborators. So here's a few examples. You'll hear about the Smartfin today. Smartfin was a technology that's being developed in the Scripps Institution of Oceanography. They want to use surfboards to get environmental data. There's Nathan right here, is our staff researcher who helps manage the program, but also do a lot of the technical development. Diving with the FishSense camera. The FishSense camera is a way of getting information about fish lengths to manage coastal ecosystems, manage fisheries, things like that. And then we've done a lot of different drone projects over the year, but this drone project is that a mangrove or that's mangrove? Looking at mangroves in Jamaica and in Mexico, using drones and also satellite imageries to study these ecosystems. So mangrove ecosystems are extremely important because they do a lot of carbon sequestration. They help with fisheries. There's a lot of baby fish that are born in mangroves and that go out and big fish. They help with hurricanes and other sort of things. So they're really important ecosystems that our collaborators in other countries have asked us to develop technologies like drones and machine learning techniques in order to study it a little bit more. So those are the types of projects, and you hear a lot more about those projects. We'll have a number of short presentations, about 5-minute presentations from each of the teams that did work over the summer. And what we'll do is we'll just have them come up sort of one at a time, present. And if you want to ask questions, you're free to ask questions. They're going to just sort of tell you the motivation of the project and give you just a teeny bit of detail about the research that they've done. So not a whole lot of, they spend a lot of time on this. They've been here for 10 weeks, working 40 hours a week or maybe more on these projects. So they've done a lot. But as Mohan mentioned, these are undergraduate students, so not too much older than you all. And so these are the sort of things that you can do that I would encourage you to do as an undergrad. As once you get here into UCSD, I would encourage you to get involved in this program. We will have an info session week 2, I believe. Nathan, when info session is October something, October 3rd. Anyway, you'll probably October 5th. It's on our website, e4e.ucsd.edu. And we encourage you to UCSD students to come. And that's a way that if you want to get involved in this program, you can come and learn more specifically exactly what sort of skills we're looking for and how you can get involved. So today will just be more of an overview of the research that we've done. Nathan, do you want to say anything else, or all good? So these are the projects. They're broadly, into these groups. So wildlife tracking, we have some fundamental research. We have a few students that had to go back. So the students here are a number of UCSD students in the summer, but there's a lot of the students that are from different universities, and some of those universities had already started semesters. They started, so some of our students are going to be remote, and they'll be talking online. But we had some more fundamental research, so really sort of basic research that's going on, and then we had a number of projects in environmental monitoring. Okay, so that's all I'm going to say. Like Mohan mentioned, I guess the spicers or spicers. What are you? What's your spicers? I don't know. Something. You have no idea. Okay, so the spice students. How about that? Cool. I think you're technically have to be here for an hour. I hope you stay longer, but you don't have to. I'll let you know in about an hour, like when the project is final project, and if you want to leave, you can kind of quietly leave out. Okay, so the students they're the ones that did all the work, and they're the ones that should get all the attention. So let's start with the FishSense project.
Well, Ryan, where do we have to talk to make sure that Zoom can hear us? It's right here. Like lectern. Okay, cool. Thank you, everyone. Today we're going to tell you a little bit about the FishSense project. My name's Chris. I am someone overseeing this project. I mentor some this project here in E4E. I'm a PhD student, but everyone else you're going to hear from today are going to be undergrads, and they're going to tell you about the work that they did. So I'd like to quickly introduce the team. Cool, the team. Seems like PowerPoint and me don't make good friends, so we'll make do with what we can. But like I said, my name's Chris. I am a PhD student working under both of the advisors here in E4E, both Ryan Kastner and Kurt Sugars. And this is my team. I think Ben is on the call.
Yeah, hi. I'm remote today, but I am an undergrad student. I worked for FishSense this summer. I go to College of the Holy Cross in Massachusetts, which is where I am right now.
So hi, my name is Alan. I'm an undergrad at UCSD and I'm also our U program as a research engineer.
I am Kai from the Faculty of
Hi everyone, I'm Tong Fei. I'm a incoming senior in UCSD studying computer engineering. I'm also an art EU student here.
Cool. And like I said, they're going to tell you about the great research that they've done this summer. So two of our main collaborators is the Reef Environmental Education Foundation, which is a fantastic organization that does international roving diver surveys to look for fish in multiple places in the world, in Florida, the Caymans, and many other places. And then the other big collaborator for us is the California Collaborative Fishery Research Project. They are interested in understanding fish off the coast of California. Both of these groups are interested in two big things. They need to know how many fish there are, and they need to know the distribution of sizes. Distribution of sizes tells you basic information about age, and the population count tells you how a population is doing. And we have two main projects, which we're going to hear about to look at those. FishSense Lite, so it's a camera with a single lens, and a laser. This laser here I can use to tell me how far away the object that the laser hits is at, and we can use that to measure fish. Likewise, we have mobile apps that can do the same thing in air. So one of these works in water, one of these works in air, and we'll tell you a little bit about the differences.
Okay, so both of our technologies pretty much share the same underlying algorithm. Like Chris said, we're both trying to find how far away the fish is. And to do that, we start by figuring out where the 2D position of this laser is. And we do that by iterating through the image, and using a classification model, it could predict whether each chunk has a laser or no laser. And once we have that 2D position, we could find that the 3D position in the real world using triangulation. And this is important for eventually the calculation of the fish length. So 2D position, now 3D position, now we know how far away the fish is from the camera.
Oh yeah, so the mobile app uses the LiDAR of ApplePro models to gather depth information. And then using a depth map, we can then find how far the fish is from the camera at multiple points.
For fish segmentation, there are four components. They are the underwater adaptive block, vision transformer encoder, fish problem supervisor, and segmentation model. Okay, firstly, we start with an underwater image. You can see that compared to the image that taken in air it's always blurry and covering the green or blue cover, which makes it hard to locate the instance and do segmentation. Since the underwater environment introduced distortion, we designed the underwater adaptive blocks to overcome this challenge. And the nonlinear perceptions help us to recover the image from being blurry, violence attenuation, and the background scattering. And after the image enhanced, we feed it into the vision transformer, and it will be encoded. This transformer learns the representation using its self-attention mechanism, and it finds out the important part of the image. Well, there are maybe many instances find out in an image. We use the fish problem supervisor to find out whether it's a fish or not, which ensures the rebound fish identification. And finally, we feed the data into the segmentation model, which is the advanced segmentation model trained by Meta. And it will generate accurate mask for the fish. Overall, this is the process of the segmentation.
So now that we have a depth mask, the question we're asking ourselves is, how much of the fish can we measure, and how do we measure?
So we have to find the endpoints of the fish. And we could start, as you can see on the left, we could start by fitting a line of best symmetry to get a good approximate estimation. But we could do a little better than that. So what I'm doing on the left is we are cutting the fish in half, and we are comparing the convex areas of the two halves. And the half with the most convex area is the half that contains we assume the tail endpoint. So now that we have the distinction between head endpoint and tail endpoint, we could use two separate algorithms to slightly adjust those endpoints. On the right is an example of our head correction, and all we're doing is isolating the nose area of our fish and selecting the outermost point, and we could assume that is our corrected head point.
So apart from the size distribution, we also want to know the population size. Here is a graph of NASA grouper population from 1980 to 2011. So the traditional way to do population estimation is mark and recapture, which requires you to stab something to the fish to mark it. And obviously this is an invasive method to do it. So the question here is there a non-invasive way to do mark and recapture? The answer is yes, and that's what we've been working on in this project, and we can actually use Face ID to virtually tag them. So there are a few steps before we do Face ID. The first step is that we are gonna do fish detection. So basically the people in oceanography, they are gonna go into the ocean and take videos of fish using GoPro, and then they're gonna pass on the videos to us engineers, and we're gonna process those videos in frames. So the first step is to detect the fish in each frame. And the picture here is a label we have for training the model. So basically, the goal of our model is to be able to put bounding boxes on most of the fish in the frame. And right now we are training a YOLO V9 model to do it. And we are currently further evaluating the performance of the model. So after we detect those fish, we want to keep track of individual across frames. So which means the model should be able to differentiate between fish 1 and fish 2, because they are two different fish with different patterns, so we cannot mix them up. And after that, we will go into frame selection. Since the ultimate goal is to do Face ID, so we will need pictures that shows the pattern of the fish pretty well. And since we are processing videos, there will be hundreds or even thousands of frames of the same individual fish. The task here is to pick out a few pictures that are a good representation of the fish. For example, here we have 3 frames of the same individual fish, and we are looking for a good side profile of the fish. So as you can see, the picture in the middle would be the best one to give out a side profile. So that's the picture we are going to use for Face ID. So finally, we have the frames for Face ID. What we need to do is to feed those pictures into our Face ID model. So here, since the pattern on the groupers are like fingerprints on human, when we feed the picture of a grouper into the grouper spotter here, the grouper spotter will assign an ID to the fish, and also it will mark the date, location, and its nickname. So as soon as the fish is identified by the grouper spotter here, the fish is now being marked. And that's how we mark the fish without actually stabbing the fish. So in addition to YOLO model, we also attempted multi-instance segmentation, which will better deal with overlapping between fish. However, as you can see in the predicted mask on the right, the problem here is that the model is missing out a lot of individuals when it comes to multi-instance images. So to further evaluate the multi-instance segmentation results, we manually labeled the individual fish from the previous picture, and we feed the individual image into the model. Here is the results of individual segmentation, and as you can see, it's doing pretty good on individual segmentation. However, when the fish is in the background, as you can see in the image on the left, since the light is attenuated, the model fails to capture those fish.
So just to quickly summarize what we talked about in today's presentation, we've covered size distribution and shear tracking through our two technologies, the FishSense Lite camera and also the FishSense mobile app. And then we're also tracking population size through Face IDing. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask. We will stay after. And if you want to reach out to us, we have our emails on the slide right now. So thank you.
Robust scientific machine learning.
Hello, my name is Cecilia. I'm a rising junior in Vermont College, it's in Pennsylvania, and I'm majoring in computer science and pure math. And I'm working with Olivia this summer, who's my mentor, and also a PhD student under Ryan. So when I know this project's name first, I was thinking about how is the machine learning can relate to science. So in the science research now, there is like increasingly larger data set. I know like everyone has some like scientific experience before. So we're dealing with like a lot of number in it. And in the real science research, the number is like so huge. So that it's like impossible for human to read that. For example, like this Large Hadron Collider, it is like the largest and also the most powerful particle accelerator in the world. And that one can, like, when that one is operated, that one can produce billion of data per seconds, which is impossible to read out, impossible to process, and also impossible to store if we are not using the neural network to help us. I mean, the human labor is really expensive, right? So, and also one more thing to think about for those like scientific research is the real world is really noisy. So do the scientific researches. So do those data sets. So the actual data set I'm working with is called 4D STEM, where the STEM refer to scanning transformation electron microscopy. And that is basically just, so people use that for the material science. And that is basically just shooting the electron beam to interact with those material that we want to test. And once those electron beams got scattered, we can measure the different type of the signals, and so that we know what that material is, we know more property of that. But one thing to know about this is we are sending the electron beams. So the more processed data we want, the more processed reading we want, we need to send more electron beams. And I'm sure we all hear about radiation thing happening like in the real life about not putting your phone when you are sleeping or those things. I mean, of course, more electron beam was sending to those material, the more damage those material is. So from this feature in on the left, like the feature B is like those a sample of the image from this 4D SEM data set, which has no noise. And this C is like the image has like 25% of boson distribution background noise, which is the most commonly image we got. Actually, we got from that whole data set. It's like we got 25% of the noise. So when we are dealing with those noisy data sets, one questions we are thinking about is how is our neural network perform? Like could the neural network like handle well if it is the image like the left. So what this neural network actually do is we can see those input image is, as what we show, has like 25% of the noise, of the background noise. And we want to find those 6 spots that I circle in right circle. We want to find those 6 spots to analysis the whole material structure. So we want the neural network to predict the mask that can hopefully mask all those 6 spots for all the image in the whole data set. But can that do that successfully, even if the noise is really huge? So how much noise could the neural network actually can handle? So what do I actually do is we're injecting different level of the background noise by those, like, we can see like those 0%, 20%, 50% of training noise, and also those testing noise. And this is showing the testing loss, which is a factor for showing how well is the neural network studying the data set, how well is the mask predicted. So we want to, hopefully we can see what is the maximum percentage of the noise that the neural network can still doing fine, so that we can we can actually working with less precise image, so that we can like send less electron beam, so that the material is not that damaged. That is basically what we are working on. Okay, yeah. Now let's welcome Bamboo on the Moon.
All right, hello everyone. My name is Tyler Flohr. I am a undergraduate student here at UC San Diego, particularly in the CS major. I lead a couple of projects in Engineers for Exploration, but the one I will be presenting to you all today is Baboons on the Move. Baboons on the Move has been a project in collaboration with the USA Norego Baboon Project for about a decade now, I want to say. The USA Norego Baboon Project consists of a bunch of anthropologist researchers here at UCSD researching baboon behavior out in Nairobi, Kenya. And they came to Engineers for Exploration asking for help with a better way of actually being able to track their baboons. So how do they actually traditionally track baboons? Well, the simplest way, and this is what they do, is they take all their researchers, they go out to the field armed with notebooks, and they just jot down what they see. Now, no matter how much you master the art of jotting down what you see in a notebook, tracking 150 baboons is difficult. And these troops can get as big as 250 baboons, and it becomes very difficult to actually track all these baboons. So what we proposed initially was to have some sort of drone footage above. Now, originally, because this project started back in 2011, drones weren't really commercially available. So this was novel back then. But as time went on, drones became more commercially available, and just having this footage wasn't really that novel enough. It wasn't really that useful, because I know there's 9 baboons in this video, or this image, sorry, but I'm willing to bet that you might only be able to find 1. So it would be really useful for the researchers if they had some sort of way to see where the baboons were. And so this is where we introduced the idea of tracks. Now, tracks can either be done hand labeled or by a machine, but at the end goal is to have some sort of ability to say, this is where the baboon is and during the current frame, and this is where they were throughout the video. So this is what you can kind of see here. So there's like a couple of baboons on the bottom. There's some up at the top. And notably, we can actually see which baboons were closely interacting with each other. So researchers can say, hey, well, maybe these baboons are always close to each other, or maybe doing these interactions with each other. But let's go back to this image now. Now that I actually know where the baboons are, there's still a problem. Where are they? Because if I'm sitting down and trying to hand label all these videos, it's going to take me hours. And from my own experience, 1 second of video takes 1 minute. So if you have a 60-second video, that's going to take you an hour to label these baboons. So we can't really see the baboons, partially because they blend in pretty well with their environment, and the resolution of the camera is so low that I can't really do some sort of zoom in and match the image to a baboon. But there's one piece of information that is not available in this information, and that is motion. We can actually use motion to figure out where these baboons are. And that's what we did as part of Engineers for Exploration. We designed SPOT, which is a multi-object tracking algorithm for baboons. Now, I'm not really going to go into too much in depth of how this actually algorithm works. One thing to actually point out right now while we're looking at it is this is all stuff that usually different versions of multi-object tracking algorithms do, but one of the notable things that Spot does is actually make sure that the images from previous frames align with the current frame. This is important because drones, unlike satellites or any sort of other stationary camera, sway around. So that's important for tracking. The other thing I want to point out is the parameters, and this will be important later because this is actually useful for how we score algorithms, because different parameters will lead to different results. But let's actually see how Spot actually performs. So here you can see some results from Spot. On the left is the untouched segment of the video, although there's a lot of compression going on due to it being a GIF embedded into a slide, and just to give you an idea of what the footage looks like. On the right, you'll see what Spot is detecting as baboons, excluding the bounding boxes and tracks, just so this is a little bit easier to see the white and black. So although Spot is detecting baboons, the results aren't perfect. But this is to be expected because, but it does also raise the question of how do we actually quantify the algorithm's performance so we can determine of where improvement can be made. And for this, we need two things. The first thing we need is we actually need a way to actually score the algorithm. Now, the way that we actually do this is we use those parameters from before and just run the algorithm over and over and over and over and over again. And we compare the results to the ground truth that humans have labeled. And then when we do the comparison, we can calculate the precision and recall score. Precision is how many of the percentage of labels were actually correct, and the recall is how many of the ground truth labels were actually detected. And we plot all those points onto the graph from running the algorithm over and over again, and we take the Pareto front, which is just the points farthest out in the graph, and the area under the curve is what we call the AP score. And that is what we use to actually give a score to the algorithm. And the other thing that we need is some sort of analogous data set. Now, tracking baboons is a relatively new topic, so we don't really have any sort of algorithms that were built for tracking baboons. So we picked satellite traffic detection because there's a ton of algorithms that are specifically made for tracking tracking freeways and satellite video. And two, satellite video itself, as you can see, are pretty similar to the kind of baboon data set that we're working with. You know, top-down angle, and blobs where I can't really tell what it is. So on the right, you have a baboon, on the left, you have a car, if you can believe me with that. So let's actually see what these quantitative results are for Spot. So on the left, we have the Pareto front for Spot on a baboon video, and we get an AP score of 0.42. We're looking for around the score of a 0.7. Think of it like a letter grade scale. And a 0.42 is not great. However, Spot does perform relatively well on actual satellite videos when it compared to other algorithms built for satellite video. So what does this mean? Well, it means that Spot is a decent multi-object tracking algorithm for satellite video, and probably in general is a good multi-object tracking algorithm, but it doesn't perform well on the baboon footage. So maybe it lends to the suggestion that baboons are just really hard to track in video. And why might that be? Well, there's a lot of problems. First of all, shadows. In satellite video, you're not really going to see these gigantic shadows. And unfortunately, baboons are most active in dawning dusk, where shadows are the most prevalent. Another thing, low contrast. I'm not too sure why, but many of the times when we actually look at cars on the freeway in these satellite videos, they're white, and which has pretty high contrast with the road that they're driving on. Thirdly, object permanence. Two baboons touch each other. Well, now the algorithm thinks they're one baboon. If two cars touch each other, well, you have a collision, so that's probably not really going to happen very much. And then the fourth problem, which I mentioned before, unstable camera. That is a whole topic on its own, is how do you actually stabilize the images with low resolution cameras. So there's just a lot of problems when it comes to actually tracking baboons. So then that raises the question, well, what is the current state of the project? Well, the current state is, we know that Spot compares how well Spot compares to other algorithms, but we don't actually know how these other algorithms perform on baboon footage. And we have a bunch of new footage that we got from the field from Kenya. And the current effort for the project is to actually re-implement and test these other algorithms that were made for the traffic detection footage and see how they compare against to Spot to say, hey, is it worth improving Spot? Is it worth improving one of these other algorithms that were developed for a different purpose? Or is the problem something else related? Or should the problem of tracking baboons should be reevaluated with different technology? This is the point of what this whole test is about. And then once we have these results, we want to put this into a publication to say, hey, other researchers or us, what should be the next step? And like I mentioned, that could be either improving Spot, improving a different multi-object tracker algorithm, or improving some other problem. My personal guess is probably waiting until the resolution of cameras and drones get better, because that way we're not relying strictly on motion. We can actually figure out what a baboon is looking at the actual video itself. But yeah, so that is the current state of the project and what is currently being worked on right now. Unfortunately, I guess we're not really doing questions right now. So if you have any questions for me, let me know after the presentation. But otherwise, I'm going to be moving it on to Smartfin.
Hi everyone, I'm Antara. I'm a junior at UCLA studying computer science.
Hi, I'm Mina. I'm an incoming second year at UCLA studying electrical engineering.
I'm Hannah, and I'm also an incoming second year, also studying electrical engineering, and I'm at UC Santa Barbara. And we are the Smartfin team, which is a project that aims to improve data collection of the coastal surf zone. So traditionally, surf zone data is collected from buoys, which are large, expensive, and you can't really put them in recreational areas, or at least a lot of them. So these are areas where people surf, swim, use paddle boards. So you've probably not seen a lot of buoys out on the coast, but you probably have seen a lot of surfers. So in 2014, a project came out of Scripps to create Smartfin, which is an Internet of Thing device that has some of the same sensors as a buoy. So think an inertial measurement unit, GPS, a temperature sensor, and essentially it's able to collect the same data as a buoy would, but instead it's a small fin that surfers can put on their surfboards. And so far, about 300 Smartfins have been distributed, and it's been proven to be very accurate. So the top graph shows temperature collected by buoys on the Scripps Pier in blue, and then the black dots are the same data collected by the Smartfin, and you can see they pretty much match up. Smartfin has also been featured in news articles like in NPR, and then it's been tested all over the world. And you can see that on the image on the right. All the dots are where the Smartfin has been tested.
So currently we're working on the third version of Smartfin. Previous versions of Smartfin supported more older technology like 3G. So we've been working on making sure we're keeping up with the latest technology so that we can continue to be able to produce fins for surfers to start using to collect. So on the software side, first, as Antara mentioned, the Smartfin consists of a couple of different sensors like the temperature sensor, GPS. And so eventually we want to be able to get significant wave height by doing frequency analysis. And to do that, we need to make sure we have reliable timings from our sensors. So one thing we've been working on is testing our sensors to make sure that they are, we're better understanding their behavior, as well as working on a scheduler that attempts to minimize delays and prioritize certain sensors so that we can make sure that we're getting those reliable times. We've also been working on simulations to test the effectiveness of the schedule. So like I mentioned before, one of the eventual goals of Smartfin is to be able to get significant wave height. And to do that, we first need to be able to get wave displacement. So on the Smartfin, it has a IMU, or inertial measurement unit, that has three sensors: a gyroscope, magnetometer, and accelerometer. It also has a DMP, or digital motion processor, that has the logic to be able to combine the data from these three sensors and give us orientation. We can then use that orientation to map from the acceleration in the fins reference frame to the acceleration in the world reference frame. After that, we can filter out any noise, do double integration, and we end up with vertical displacement. And from here, we would eventually be able to get significant.
So like Mina was talking about, this project has been going on for quite a while. That means that some of the PCBs or printed circuit boards that are eventually going to go into the fin were actually able to be developed last summer and all of last year. So a lot of what we've been working on this summer has been debugging and testing these PCBs. We want to make sure that they work. We want to make sure that all of the sensors work and are giving us accurate data. And we want to know how long it takes for those sensors to get the data. So in the picture, you can see Mina debugging the PCB. And another part of that is actually getting these sensors and getting the PCBs into the fins themselves. So the other thing we've been working on this summer has been potting. And potting is essentially the process of us taking all the software, all of the hardware, everything we've been working on, and getting it into an actual fin that is going to stand up to the turbulent conditions that are actually in the surf zone. So what we've been doing is figuring out different manufacturing methods that can give us the potential for low rate distribution. And low rate, as I said, low rate distribution is eventually our goal. That means we would be producing 5, 10, 15 Smartfins a month, and actually getting them out to our collaborators to better understand the surf zone and get actual data and start improving and learning about the surf zone. And the great thing about Smartfin is that it's not just about getting oceanographic data, but it also allows us to turn surfers into scientists and really enforce the idea of citizen scientists. Yeah, thank you so much for your time. We'll pass it on.
Hello, I'm Derek. I go to UC Santa Cruz and I work at the Scripps Institute of Oceanography on the VOLT project. And the VOLT project essentially stands for Vehicle for Observing Lagrangian Transport. And the first part of understanding the VOLT project is to understand what Lagrangian transport means. Essentially, that means anything that drifts around and can't control its position. So if you didn't know, plankton actually translates to drifter. And so plankton get pushed around by ocean currents and they change their buoyancy to move up and down the water column. And this is actually one of the biggest migrations we have on our planet. And our goal is to create robots that mimic these plankton. And by understanding and by looking at what these robots do, we can understand better how plankton migration happens. And if we can understand why plankton migration happens, we can better predict things like bioluminescence and red tides that you might see here at Scripps in the fall and spring. And there we go. This is the swarm. So we essentially have 30 robots that hold a certain depth and they follow the water column. They get pushed around by the waves and we can track them. And basically you can get a really good understanding of what the underwater currents are doing at a particular time. And this is the volt. So it's about 46 centimeters. It's fully aluminum, and it has a buoyancy control piston, so it changes its volume and it can go up and down. It can use a conductivity temperature depth sensor to understand its environment. It can drop a weight and rise to the surface if something goes wrong. And at the surface, we have an antenna to communicate back to our boat so that we can pick it up. Importantly, we have a transducer. And so this essentially sends acoustic waves through the water and we can talk to surface floats. And that's really useful because trying to understand where things are underwater is really hard. GPS does not work. It travels maybe a couple centimeters through water. So what we have to do is we have to send acoustic pings from GPS localized surface buoys on the surface. And we send pings to and from our underwater volts. And we can basically figure out, using some simple math, we can figure out exactly where our volt is by looking at how long these waves are taking to travel and come back from our volt. Another part of and that was essentially most of my summer, trying to figure out how to position things underwater. Another part of my summer is as you might imagine, having a swarm of underwater robots is very challenging. And you need to be able to test your code effectively without going out on a boat and trying it or in a pool. So I've been working on a simulator that can simulate underwater conditions, and we can test all our code many times before we actually deploy it. In combination with testing the physical properties of simulating the physical properties of the Volt, I've been working on using this simulator called Bellhop. And Bellhop, like if you look at how gaming works, you use ray tracing. So you basically simulate where like light would bounce around. But in our case, we simulate how waves bounce around the water column. And you can see basically we have our source on the top left, or yeah, top right, and it bounces around the ocean current, the ocean surface, and we can see how it propagates, and that's really useful for better understanding how our localization algorithm is going to work. And the last part of my summer, last week, we went out on a boat and we tested some of these modems. We got pretty good accurate ranges to about 1 kilometer, which is more than what we need for the deployment. And we were able to track our boat from a buoy by sending pings back and forth. And that's a little bit of, that's off the side of the Scripps Pier, if you're wondering. And yeah, that's basically the Volt project. These are the people that work on it. Devin's right here. Yeah.
Okay, this is the Mangrove Monitoring project, and our goal is to aid in conservation efforts using machine learning and drones. And our work is in collaboration with researchers at the Scripps Institute of Oceanography. Okay, so who you see up here is the REU summer team for Mangrove Monitoring. Aryan and Rahul couldn't make it today. They are off at Howard University taking classes now. But I want to note that what you're looking at is the accumulated work of a really large team over the course of an over 7-year-long project development cycle. Okay, so mangroves, if you're not familiar, are the whole focal point of our project, and they are a tree species that live in intertidal zones. And specifically, they're rooted in water. They're important because they act as strong carbon sinks. So on average, mangroves annually sequester 10 times the rate of carbon than do mature tropical rainforests. And not only that, but because they're rooted in water, they act as storm breaks and fisheries for local coastal communities. So they have ecological importance because they're good at absorbing carbon, but they also have economic and cultural importance to coastal communities. So as a result, they are of ecological importance for researchers, and understanding trends in their populations is very important. So that begs the question, how can we survey mangrove populations? Well, one approach is bushwhacking. This is kind of the first approach in much of the scientific literature, which is essentially going out to a mangrove forest and hacking through it to try and survey the extent of the vegetation. And as you can see, mangrove forests are pretty dense. That is a picture from a 2017 expedition to Jamaica. So what we do instead is fly drones to capture high resolution aerial photography. And that makes it a lot easier to understand the coverage and extent of the vegetation. But it's not trivial to fly drones. Drones are expensive. It takes a lot of legislation and permission to get access to the airspace and fly them. Over the course of multiple expeditions, we've lost drones. So although the data is really good and really high resolution, it's still hard to capture. And so we're looking into alternatives that are a little bit more accessible, and we'll come back to that later in the presentation. Okay, so our prerogative is first data acquisition. Our idea is to collect high resolution imagery with drones, where we've carried out expeditions to Jamaica and Mexico, and we then use that data to train our machine learning models, which we ideally use to classify mangroves and aerial imagery. And then our final goal is to increase access for scientists so that they can use our models through web platforms to help them with their conservation and ecological research.
So here's an example of the data we collected. And what you see in red are mangroves that have been hand labeled by students. And we have about 88 square kilometers of this hand labeled data. So we have a lot of data to train our machine learning model with. So here we have the original image and the labels. And then here's what our model predicts. So we have a pretty accurate model. And over the summer, we've been working to cut this model down in size. And we've cut it down to about a quarter of the original size, which is a massive improvement. And we're also working on building a web app so we can increase access to if researchers want to use our models. Get that done. So in this case, the researchers would upload their own images to our web app and then send it to our servers, which would then process those images using our machine learning models. And then it returns these GeoJSONs, which are labeled mangroves, which is what you see in blue right here. Then those researchers can use that to do whatever they want to do with those labeled mangroves. Yeah. So we are exploring alternatives to drones because drones are expensive and not everyone has access to drones or drone data. So we're trying to find a better way to get that done. These first two options are pretty resource intensive. And again, like conservationists might have access to these resources. So to solve that, we're trying to use satellite imagery, which is very available and we have full coverage. We have coverage of the entire Earth. So that'd be really convenient if we can use that instead of drones, but it is very low resolution compared to drones. So it's we don't get as much information out of that, but to remedy that, we're trying to do what's called super resolution, which means that we take a low resolution image and we convert it into a high resolution image using a machine learning model. So we're trying to do that, and if we can get that done, we'll be able to get like a high precision classification with a low resolution satellite image, which would be very useful. But that's still a current open research problem, and we're still working on it. So the big idea here is we're trying to build machine learning models to classify mangrove imagery. And at the same time, we're also developing tools where researchers can actually use our machine learning models. Because the model is only useful if people can actually use it. So we're trying to build a platform so people can use that. That is it. Here's our contact info. Yeah. Acoustic species.
Okay, we're the Acoustic Species presentation. Our collaborators are the San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance. We've been working with them for the last 4 years. Here's the people who've been working on over the summer. Name's Sean Perry. I've been on the team for the last 4 years as a project lead and going in as a candidate PhD student in the fall.
Hi, I'm TQ. I've been on this project for the past year and been a project lead since spring. And yeah.
Hi, I'm Ludwig. I've also been on the project since last fall and been a project lead since spring.
Jonathan, you there?
Hi, hello everyone. My name is Jonathan and I'm from Johns Hopkins. I've been working with you guys on the engineering for exploration for the summer.
Sarangana is not here today. School has started for both Jonathan and Sarangana, so they are not able to make the presentation, but they have done some amazing work over the summer. Jonathan, go.
Hi. So biodiversity has been decreasing over the past decades, And the way we measured biodiversity is to count these animals. So traditionally, a lot of the ways that we count the animals has been methods such as camera traps and mark and recapture, which are literally using cameras to either see these animals or to literally catch these animals, which, as you can imagine, they work really great for animals that are larger and easier to catch. However, this means that smaller animals have been going under the radar. So we've been working with the San Diego Zoo to specifically focus on these smaller animals that fly around, especially birds, right? So what we have is something called acoustic monitoring. And if you can see on the right, these are the microphones that we deploy in the Peruvian jungles that collect sound from their environment. So over the past in the summer 2019, we worked with the San Diego Zoo and deployed 39 of them in the Peruvian jungles. And together we've collected 1,500 hours of data. And that is a lot of data. If we were to have experts go out and go through all of these audio and were to label them, this would take approximately 6 months with no sleep, no rest, and no food to hand label all of these data. So the goal of our project, or the question that we're trying to solve, is that can we automatically label these large amounts of data?
Now, people have been investigating this question for a while now. Here's a graph showing the performance in a competition from 2020, where a bunch of groups took audio from a bunch of different regions and tried to use machine learning to classify birds. Now, if you look at these bars here in purple, that's Peru. These bars are a lot lower than the other ones, which means the models, the tools that people are making don't do as well on Peru, do a lot worse actually on Peru than other regions like Germany, like places in the US, stuff like that. So the big question is, why? What makes Peru so much harder than these other regions? So there's a couple reasons. First of all, being part of the Amazon, there's a lot more different species in Peru in a lot smaller area. So you can imagine if you have all these different birds that are kind of calling over each other, it's going to be a lot harder to pick out one specific species in all that sound. Another thing is, I don't know if anyone's actually been to the Amazon rainforest, but as you can imagine, it's pretty dense. There's a lot of vegetation, a lot of trees, a lot of vines, things like that, that could occlude the sound, distort it, and make the sound harder to hear going from the bird to our recorders. Which brings us to more general issues in bioacoustics in any region, which is that most of the training data that we have for these tools is focal. So if you can see on the left there, that's an example of a focal clip. And these are crowdsourced audio where people take microphones and they go out and record the birds they hear. So you can imagine they would only record the clearer bird sounds that are easier to hear. But if we have passive recorders that are just sitting in a jungle somewhere, then they're going to record a lot more different noises. So insects, tree branches falling, other species, which is shown on the right here. It's a lot harder to pick out where the bird is.
Now, for specifically what we did over the summer is we first looked at correlation, specifically looking at correlations between different birds when it comes to their bird songs. So we built this neat visualization where you can see exactly which kind of birds are related to each other when it comes to their calls. Then we further explored specifically the duration of bird calls and how we encode time into this. Since CNNs, convolutional neural networks, do not encode any information about time, we thought it'd be interesting to actually train a transformer, since transformers specifically encode time as an embedding. We also looked further into how we can train a computer to better represent spectrograms, specifically basically train the computer to represent a spectrogram for bird audios. So you can see on the left is a male spectrogram, which is optimized for human hearing. And on the right, we trained a spectrogram that specifically is optimized for bird calls. Since our collaborators asked us to build a tool to better interact with our models and specifically labeling our training data and storing all of this, we started building out a whole desktop app that actually encapsulates all of this functionality, being able to run inference on data, label data, and also store this data in databases.
The high level overview is we're trying to make it easier for our collaborators at the San Diego Zoo in order to process their data, manage it, and then also be able to manage the amount of data they're collecting. At this point, every single year they go back to Peru and gather terabytes more data with audio. So we're trying to help them deal with all this data. Contact information is here in case anyone, especially those for the SPICE students, are interested in reaching out. But the basic idea is that we're just trying to help manage the collaborative data set and let these species be heard. We did it in an hour. We didn't have to leave or pretend to leave or not pretend to leave. I want to emphasize that this is all, almost all undergraduate-led research. The vast majority of these students are undergraduates, or even the graduate students were undergraduates working on these projects. If you're interested in doing research, if you're as an undergraduate, which is a very, very good thing to do if you want to go to graduate school, that's a pretty, that's what you do in graduate school for the most part, is you do research. And to get into the best graduate schools like UCSD and other places, you often have to do research as an undergraduate. So this is a great program. It's one of the biggest programs, I think, at UCSD, undergraduate research programs at UCSD. And we do, I'm very biased, as we all are, but I think we do some of the best sort of research in the sense that we are building things that really make a difference, really make an importance to our scientific collaborators, make an importance to the world. As you can see, a lot of this stuff is built around conservation and understanding our world and climate change and these sort of things that are going to affect your generation and future generations. So we have I think, almost a duty as people who are developing technologies to understand how to use those technologies for things like this. And this is a fantastic opportunity. I'm not aware of pretty much any other university in the world that has a program like this. So you have a really unique opportunity to do this at UCSD. We will have an info session for those UCSD folks that want to be involved in October 8th, 2:30. I looked it up. Thank you, Nathan. It will it'll probably be in 1242 over there, 3 p.m. Sorry, 3 p.m. And that is going to be very specifically towards, here are pretty much these same projects, but here are the skill sets that we want to have for these projects, and here's how you can get involved in those projects as undergraduates. We've had a large number of SPICE students do these things. The sooner the better, in my opinion. Big question that I often get is, oh, I'm just coming in, I don't know if I have the skills to do it. The fact of the matter is, you probably honestly never have the skills to do these things. Even when you graduate, you have to learn them, right? So I think you probably ask the students here, when they came in the summer, did they have the skill sets to do a lot of these things? And the answer is very likely no. They learned it. Figured out how to do that, and that's what a lot of research is all about. So don't be afraid. I hope to see you there, and we're going to stick around for a while. Happy to answer questions, and I think more importantly, you should talk to these people. They did all the work. They're your what are called near peers. They're the people that were maybe in those seats. Some of them, perhaps. I don't know if anybody went through SPICE, but they were kind of in your same position. They were going into UCSD. They were kind of scared, probably a little bit, wondering what's going to go on. And they're navigating through undergraduate and doing great research and becoming, are going to be great ambassadors for UCSD. And you should take their advice, and also on the university, not just UCSD students, but other places too, so you can get a feel for how UCLA is, and Santa Barbara, and Santa Cruz, and what am I missing? A few other places as well. Yeah, Howard is not here, but yeah, so I can get a feel for these other places as well. So thanks a lot. We'll be sticking around and hope to see you during the school year. And for you all online, there's a chat question, something in chat. We're very happy to get close to the mic. Thanks, Bryce. That was earlier, sorry. We're very happy to take any questions or all of these, all the information about the projects was online, so or was on those emails. So feel free to reach out to us. E4E, E4E.ucsd.edu. It's very easy. Yeah, so that's where our website is. It's a pretty good website that has all the information on it as well if you want to get anything else.
There'll be a QR code on the next slide.
There'll be a QR code on the next. There you go. Yep. So that's me. That's Nathan. Kurt is on sabbatical, but he'll be back. He's an EC professor. And those are the names of all the pupils. And yeah. So thanks a lot again. Enjoy the rest of your summer. Thank you all in the E4E program this summer for your amazing work. It was a great pleasure to work with you all. So don't be strangers. Yeah. And safe travels home. Yeah.
I missed Tom's name.
What's that?
I missed Tom's name.
Oh.